Well, hello everyone. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. Get my
Hi, Jeff. We can see you and I can see the screen.
Let's see here. Can everyone see my screen, see the slides before we get started?
Yes, we can.
You'll have to unmute your mic so I can hear it.
Yes, can see the screen.
I don't think he can hear us.
All right. Can everyone hear me? I can't
Yes.
tell at this point. Okay, good. Thanks, Susan. Appreciate it. All right. So let's get started. All right. Today is the class 5 for the Nakshatras, and we'll be looking at Hasta, Chitra, and Swati Nakshatras. And I made a list of people that actually have their charts of people that have these particular nakshatras, and we'll have some case studies where we'll be talking with you about that. But before, as we start in the way that we always do with Vedic chant and some bringing ourselves into the present moment. So take a deep breath in, closing your eyes. Hold it and slowly let go. And another deep breath in. Hold. And slowly let it out. Feel your awareness coming into the present moment. And we'll begin the chants, starting first with 3 ohms. Om Gananam Tva Ganapati Gamavamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspatiyana Shrinvanutipisi Dasadanam Om Mahaganapataye Namaha. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Punaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome to Class 5 in the Nakshatras, Mythology, Psychology, and Consciousness, where today we'll be dealing with Hasta, Chitra, and Swati Nakshatras. And as always, as we've done in the previous sessions, we'll be talking about the strengths and shadow issues of them, as well as we won't go into each of the chart interpretations in the forecast, but when we work with some of the charts that already have these nakshatras, we'll be able to see the expression of some of those. And in the documents that you'll receive, the Word files, I've done a fairly comprehensive presentation of how to see that in terms of a reading or a forecast. So the first nakshatra we're going to deal with is the flow of the spirit through the mind related to Hasta. And this is a particularly important one because Hasta is ruled by the moon. So the mind is related to the moon. And this is one of the powerful nakshatras that shows that natural tendency to nurture and comfort others. And it also shows that you'll place a high level of importance on your own state of mental peace. Hasta means hand, but in the hand, we're not talking about a hand clenched like a fist that might be holding on to tools and using that. In Hasta, the hand is open in an offering of a gesture of offering. The deity is Savitur, who's one of the Adityas. All the Adityas seem to hang out in this area of the zodiac. And he's one of the gods that was invoked in the Gayatri mantra. So Om Bhur Bhuvasvaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Pargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Naha Prachodayata. And the Gayatri mantra is one of the most powerful ones because it's composed of 24 syllables. And Savitur gives the power to place what you want in the palm of your hand. So Mercury gets exalted here. So we can see a lot of expressions of skills, discernment, detail orientation, and precision related to this Mercury because it's at its highest expression where it radiates out all of that Mercury energy of flexibility, intelligence, communications, research, and also all the detail, nitty-gritty structures and things of life that come from Virgo, for example. And this sign is at 10 degrees Leo to 23 degrees Virgo is where Hasta lies. And as I said, it's ruled by the moon, the symbol being the hand. Nature is light and swift, and we'll talk about that in a moment. It's a Deva Gana, so Devic energy. The animal is the buffalo. So Mercury was born from the seed of the moon, and it was exalted in the moon's nakshatra. But it's in a sign which is actually ruled by Mercury. So Hasta, think of that as very powerful manifestation nakshatra. I draw similarities because it's in Virgo where all the Vedic knowledge is to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And Patanjali, there's no proof that there was ever a person named Patanjali. Patanjali doesn't really describe an individual person. It describes the act of offering. And so when you do like a Vedic ceremony, like a Guru Puja or something like that, at the very end you offer the handful of flowers, which is called Anjali, and you surrender that onto the table where the puja is being performed, or actually onto the puja itself. All of the instruments that are set up for that particular puja. So the manifesting nature gives a hint to how this relates to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So there are 4 padas in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And the first one is Samadhi pada, which is the chapter, if you will, or the beginning verse that tells you how do you get into the state of samadhi, the state where you're in the 4th state of consciousness, which is depth of meditation, that restful alertness of our awareness. So once we've established samadhi pada, the second pada is sadhana pada, which talks about how do you make that into a regular occurring practice. So once you attain the ability to understand, to transcend and experience samadhi, some mean the collection of tea of the light. And there's one way to look at it. You bring all the collection of everything, the sum, which produces the which gives rise to the tea, samadhi, that expression of that depth of light. That is the that is that profound transformative energy which comes through your sadhana. So learning how to establish that so it becomes ingrained in your life is the second part of the Yoga Sutras. The third deals with vibhuti pada, vibhuti pada. So that is the subtlest levels of creation, vibhuti. And when you do a yajna or a homa, some pujas, if there's ash left from it, it is literally the vibhuti, the subtlest elements that were purified from the offering that was given in the fire. So vibhuti relates to the individual expressions of manifestation, which come from Hasta. So the vibhuti is the transformation of that energy. And these are related to each of Patanjali's sutras that he lists. And each of the sutras are about an intention that you hold. You have an intention, a sankalpa, and you let it go into the void. You drop it into the void. So if you don't know what samadhi is, and you don't know how to sustain samadhi over the duration of a sankalpa, this is what gets developed in the first 2 padas of the Yoga Sutras. And the third one is where you have that depth of transcendence from within samadhi, and the discipline of the practice associated with it, with the pranayama, the meditation, the asana, all of those that prepares the body for its purity in order to have a very clear, obstacles removed intention. So you have the intention and you let it go into the void. And the intention is the sutra, the idea, the intent. And it's not necessary that the sutras be used in a way that they're in Sanskrit. That's not important at all because it's your consciousness. Whatever language you speak is the language that you have your intentions and all your thoughts in. You're not thinking in Sanskrit. So the manifestation is happening deep within. So Hasta is known as that great manifestation nakshatra, and as the worldly life and kingdom take shape, it must be beautiful and it must be perfected. And this nakshatra is related to karma and attachment, like our hands are involved with attachment. And we need to see all creations as the Lord's work, as a divine manifestation. And that's the highest principle of Hasta. And so for this to occur, there must be detachments from the fruits of our effort and the realization that our hands are just an extension of God's hands. And nowhere is this as clear as in the Yoga Sutras. So once you develop Vibhuti-pada and you're having these small sutras, sutra comes from the word suture. Suture means to stitch. And what the sutras do in this practice of the Yoga Sutras, if you learn this from a guru, someone who, and not from a yoga studio, but you learn it from a master who understands this knowledge. And what they bring out is what is the whole value for doing that. So after you do your yoga and your meditation, and the depth of that deep silence in the state of samadhi is where you have the intentions. You pick up an intention and you surrender it into God's hands. And you're detached from what that produces. Any attachment to you takes you out of that state of samadhi where you're in this equanimous, transcendent, detached from everything. So that's an important principle to understand. So the detachment from the fruits. So one of the mistakes people make with the Yoga Sutras is they practice them, they hang on to the sutra instead of surrendering it, like with the open hand in a downward offering gesture, and realizing that you're not in control of that. It's not your effort that's going on there. It's just letting the intention flow with the hands of the divine. And so Hasta is ruled by Savitur, and Savitur is the energy, it's the deity that you're chanting the Gayatri mantra to. So this is all about creative inspiration, transformation, the transformative form of the sun god. Sun god is the soul. It's the life force energy. It's the Atma, the Atman. And that's what's being transformed. So all of the transformations we go through are soul transformations. They're the depth of us that is the one without the second, that part of us that goes on and on and on and never dies. And so the transformation is related to the sun god, of which Savitur is a sun god because he's one of the avidyas. So its basis, its power is in the ability to gain what you're seeking and place it in your own hands. That's called the Hastastapatanya Agama Shakti. So the Agama shows ancient knowledge of the Shakti. And it's the Stapanya is literally the structure. You can think of it as a route to Stapatya Veda, which deals with spatial relationships and alignments of energies. And Hasta, it has to do with that alignment coming from the source of the soul in the intention that we have. So its power is the ability to gain what we're seeking and put it in our own hand. Its basis above is the seeking of gain. Its basis below is the process of gaining. These together place one's wishes to gain in one's own hands. And nowhere other than the Yoga Sutras do you see this. The final pada 4 in the Yoga Sutras, deals with kaivalya, pada. Kaivalya is the wholeness of the entire mind-body system functioning at the highest capacity it is. The entire mind, the entire brain, all of the functioning aligns with deeper spirit. That's a holistic, and that's what the Kaivalya means. It means like the wholeness. And so through the period of practice of doing the sankalpa, through the sanyama, it's called the technique of sanyama, which is related to that intentional flow of specific sutras. So these sutras, as I said, related to the name suture, what they do is they stitch the realms of the absolute unbounded into the relative world. So you have a relative text, you have this relative sutra. That sutra, you have an intention, which is a subtle thought for it, and then a surrendering of that, dropping that into the state of samadhi, into the fourth state, the gap, so that wholeness emerges from that. And so over time, what you're doing is you're literally stitching more of that transcendent energy from the absolute realm, unbounded realm, into the finite realm of the body, which creates Kaivalya. So the strengths of this are that you're gifted with a power and a transformative healing touch. Hand. So a lot of people that have Hasta in their chart, they're hands-on kind of people. You'll see a lot of massage therapists and people who work with their hands. You'll see a lot of that energy there. So the healing touch and the desire to use that gift for the betterment of all. So this is also Reiki, all these energies that flow through the hands, which are God's energy, divine energy. So you easily combine an industrious and a practical approach with creativity, wit, and discrimination. And this makes you a valuable friend, a worker, and an associate. Because it lies in Virgo, and it sits in the center of Virgo, this makes it very, very central to what goes on in Virgo, which is Virgo people are practical, hands-on. They're ruled by they're an earth element, extremely practical, detail-oriented people. You know, very precise, very, very detail-oriented. So that means that you're innately aware of how to achieve the goals that are most efficiently and in a way that honors and dignifies all of those things. Because Virgo is about purity. You know, it doesn't want to let things that are not pure into that environment. And it scrutinizes everything, and it takes things in a very serious manner. It's very dutiful energy. So you can see that duty pouring forward here about wanting to dignify that in a very onerous way. I'll fix this next sentence. I left off the you. So you're also quite flexible, and you present a pleasant speaking manner and a style that puts people at ease and allows them to do their best, because you're always open-handed, ready to accept whatever comes to you. Same with the sutras. Whatever sutra comes, brings some flavor of consciousness with it. And so this relates to one of the strengths that we see, that we're speaking literally in the awareness, we're having the thought, we're having the intention. It's like speaking. And you'll also see, because of the detailed structure oriented of that earth sign, which is about structures and ideas because it's ruled by Mercury, and putting forth those structures and communicating about all those details with dispassion and discrimination. So that's the strengths that we see. Now, the shadows show that when you're under physical or emotional stress, you tend to be critical and you fault finding. And we all know that Virgo is known for criticism. And so due to the delicate construction and the nervous, delicate constitution rather, and the nervous system. So this is an issue in Virgo. A lot of people, if they don't take care of their health properly and they don't eat the right foods, all of those things can bring impurities into the body. And Virgo rules the bowels of the Kala Purusha. So it's a lot of details there that can be, and some of those are, disgusting details. But you can see that when that physical emotional stress shows up, which means that that delicate nervous system that wants to keep everything pure and not have any impurities go into it, can get thrown out of balance by all of that. So you manage your daily routines and you live a clean life. You may also relish the role of being a martyr at times, because you're practical and down to earth, and when things aren't going your way, you start scrutinizing everything for the purity, which can, and you can blame yourself for all of that. And as a result of that, that martyr image can come out of that. And so co-managing the healing of another allows you to avoid healing yourself. So that's one of the shadow issues of it. And you'll see a lot of people that practice herbology, some of them don't necessarily follow their own practice. They're very good at what they do. Maybe an Ayurvedic practitioner, very detailed. They can tell you everything about it, but you will see in the shadows how they don't take care of that for themselves, because they'll put others in front of them. So, and the third is a life lived aligned with a worthy goal is really important for you. Something practical that you can achieve in the world. And in Virgo, it's got to be pure, very detailed. When I studied with the Maharishi in the first part of my life, from age 19 to about 30, or 35, I think I was, I studied the TM City program, which is the Yoga Sutras. And now with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar as my current teacher, his program is actually even more profound, and it's called Sanyam. He leaves, of course, leaves the A off of it, but it's incredibly powerfully charged in a very dynamic way, which is much more Libra, I'm sorry, not Libra, much more Virgo oriented about the details, because the details reside not just from the thought, but the underlying pranic energy in the body, infusing that. And Mercury rules the breath and the lungs, and it deals with, not only the intelligence and skills we have, but how do we put those into practice in order to purify ourselves. And so Mercury rules Vishuddha chakra, which is everything below the third eye, all of the twos, the eyes, the nose, the ears, up or down mouth, the glands underneath around our neck, and also our breast, our lungs, our arms, hands, our ability to be flexible, all of those things. So that's an important thing to understand, that the prana, all of the practices of the sadhana, what's the most important is the intimate connection of the breath here. And that breath is God's force. It's essentially placing your spirit in God's hands, placing all your intentions in that. So, and if you doubt that, you can go without asanas and you can go without meditation for a long time. How long can you hold your breath? And so you can see the ultimate pranic life force is the spirit. And here in Virgo, what the Maharishi used to always say is keep the teachings pure. And for all of the ladies out there, Maharshi always said if this knowledge was kept only in the hands of women, it would never have been lost. So it shows that nurturing quality of the feminine energy and of the female organization and gathering of people, because they take care of the life force and the men work with it. Men are expressing it. Everyone does all of this, but this is the way it's looked at from a Vedic perspective. So moving on from Hasta into looking at it as the 13th nakshatra in the zodiac, and it sits in the center of Virgo, in the heart of center of Virgo. This shows the practical, skilled, and attached nature of Virgo. So Hasta is where you want power to take form. The symbol is the hand. Power to take form comes from intention, sankalpa, and surrender. Surrender that. So this is the sixth sign. So Virgo is all about inner intelligence and that organizing and managing power of all the details of the world. So improvement and service is here. You're always wanting to, grow and make things more exacting, more precise, more discerning. And with Hasta, it's all about service, opening your hands, not taking on karma by clenching tools and trying to do something. And what you'll see in Virgo is a lot of things just happen. And this is where skill in action resides. In Hasta, one of the highest skills in action is to have your desire fulfilled before you even know you have it, which comes from an intention. So that perfection of the inner intelligence and realizing that developing tolerance for your own imperfections and others' imperfections is the real purification. That willingness to want to scrutinize everybody and then be critical of what they do as an example of that. So the sixth sign of the zodiac related to the sixth house is all about struggle and hard work. So it's the things that we love to create the most, however. And so those things that we love to create the most work as well. So when we serve those things, we love rather than resent the work that they demand of us. So this is pretty analogous to like when you have a child, fifth house, and all the creativity associated with that. That's the heart's desire. The heart's desire is what determines how willing you are to do the difficult tasks, the detail-oriented tasks, which you struggle with often in your life. And when you approach it with that unbounded love of a mother for her child, she'll do anything for that child. She'll get up at any hour of the night if they're sick, if they need their diapers changed. That's not true of relationships because those require compromise. They acquire, you do this, I'll do that. And in the sixth sign is where we want to serve something, but we often struggle and have enemies around those difficult tasks, and we don't want to do them. We might resist doing them, as an example. So, this is related to very much to, because it's the sixth sign of the zodiac, to Hasta, which is we serve people with our hands, with open hands. We serve it through our intentions. We serve it through all of our thoughts and actions and skills, all those Mercury-related things. And we serve it to the highest level because Mercury is exalted here. It's radiant. And a very, very powerful case for serving mankind. And it's related to manifesting hands-on, down-to-earth, practical nature. So this is about being industrious, intelligent, and reasonable. So this nakshatra can symbolize agreements and greetings as represented by the handshake, for example. It's a different kind of agreement than a contract that we talked about with the Nakshatras of Uttara Palguni, which is all about that, you marry yourself to the kingdom, the marriage star, after you've been courted. And then all the contracts that are involved once you get married, all the details of what you have to do, because there's no longer one, there's two. So a lot of things to be considered, a lot of things to struggle around, a lot of things to disagree on. All those things can come out of Hasta because of criticism and the detail orientation and the need and desire for purity and perfection. So the ruling planet is Moon, of course, which is all about connection, intuition, emotion, and creativity. And the Moon is how we feel when we're alive. What does it feel like to be alive? So feelings and emotions are involved in there. Those are some of the surface level structures in our life, that when we feel something, we're feeling it on the surface level. Our emotions reside on the surface level, and we need to go deeper. We need to connect deeper to the heart to really feel that presence. And here we have Hasta, which is ruled by the Moon, sitting in the center of the sign, bringing all of these attributes to it. So these are things like our family, our mother, all the others around us, and our habits and our boundaries. Those are the Moon. So this is also all about skill and detail orientation. So that influence of Virgo leads to the structure of deep understanding that's regarding all of the laws of nature. Remember, I mentioned in one of the earlier sessions how all of the laws of nature reside in Virgo, all the deities of it. And so having that god of the sun, that god of power, Savitur, who's the most auspicious because he is what is invoked through the Gayatri mantra. This is exemplifies all this skill and detail orientation. And it leads to that, the influence of Virgo in the structures of our life and how we understand it deeply regarding all the laws of nature. And the laws of nature are personified as the devas. The deity gives the instruction, and the devas are what manifests all. That's where skill and action comes. This is where you do less and you accomplish more. Through mere intention, you can achieve what it is that you need. You don't have to work so difficultly. You don't have to be so hardworking, Things will get done and can get done just through your intentions. So you'll notice when you read the Hasta document, the notes for referring to like how to put it into a forecast or somebody's chart, you'll see a range of all these things being described as the importance of how Hasta really brings out these capabilities. And you'll see that this skill and orientation is related to the perfection of things, things of perfection and perfecting things, and all that discrimination, discernment. And so these sanyam and or sanyama, whichever you want to call it, those are related to what are called supernormal abilities, siddhis, they're called, perfections. It's where the mind and the body come together for a perfect effect that manifests something through the power of the divine, through God's hands, showing how we're just an extension of that. So rather than being grasping hands and creating karma and thinking we're in control, we have to realize here that this is all a divine manifestation that's coming about through this. And it happens in Hasta. So you'll see a lot of things happen easily there. And you'll also see a lot of graduate study and detailed kinds of things that have perfected people's skill sets also happen in Hasta and Chitra Nakshatras in Virgo, because this, you'll see, graduate study is definitely involved with Virgo. So deep spiritual study of your practices is exactly the same kind of thing, getting into all the details. And so these supernormal abilities are the way that the mind and the conscious awareness manifests things through perfection. No effort at all to have a thought. No effort at all to witness an intention or a sankalpa and just let it go. Complete effortless. So siddhi means that perfection of bringing the mind and the intention together with the transcendent gap. So as the deity Savitur, one of the celestial deities, one of the Adityas, the offspring of Aditi, the earth mother, and her husband, sage Kashyapa. So the Adityas, as we had mentioned in previous explanations about the nakshatras, represents light. Surya, the sun god, is the most prominent of them, and their names are also used as epithets of Surya. So suggesting that their connection to one another and their nature as light beings. So the praise of Savitur infuses the most powerful of the Vedic chants, Gayatri mantra, and Gayatri shows the manifesting power of the sun as the force that empowers all beings and the necessity to ground that energy into practical work. So Hasta gives power to take your heart's desire and place it in the palm of your hand. So that whole thing of manifestation, bringing your highest desires into fulfillment, is called skill in action. Now, as we flow in spirit through the mind into Chitra Nakshatra, Chitra means brilliant, shining, or beautiful. And Chitra shows that practical, creative dynamic of Virgo into Libra juncture. That's where you're dealing with all of the details of life. You're building the structure of your life, and flowing into the Chitra in Libra, you're socializing that. You're making something that's both beautiful and practical in that juncture. So you have a courageous, active, and searching nature, which brings you face to face with a lot of challenges. And the deity here is Twastar, also known as Vishwakarma, who is the divine architect. And this placement of Chitra starts at 23 degrees 20 minutes of Virgo and extends into 6 degrees 39 minutes in Libra. And the ruler is Mars energy. The symbol is the pearl or a precious gem. The nature is soft and tender. And the race is that, I'm sorry, it looks like I left that one out. The race on that one, I think, is Manusha. Just a second, let me take a peek here. My notes. When you're editing these things, it's so easy to overlook something. And leave it out. Ah, yes, it's a Deva. So I'll change that one in the notes. So it had to be Davic because of the energy that's represented by that sort of manifestation force. Let's see here. Aha. All right. So let's go on to Twastar being as that deity, one of the divine architects. And also, again, one of the adityas. Most of the adityas all flow from this realm of Virgo. The celestial brothers who protect and they care for the earth. And Twastar was who built the cosmos for everyone to enjoy it. So there was a time when the sun was so bright, it was overpowering all of creation. And Lord Brahma asked Twastar to place the sun on a cosmic lathe so that it could thin out its powerful rays. And so, the story goes that as they do that, all these sparks are flying off of the sun. And so Twastar was obliged, and what happened is he created all those reflecting smaller sparks, but he also created all the other planets to reflect the smaller portions of the sun's light. So the planets are the bodies that reflect smaller portions of the sunlight that you can observe. And Twastar rules the mystical celestial magic and its power of illusion. He also created Lord Indra's thunderbolt and Lord Vishnu's discus, which are their weapons to combat this illusion. So one of the things you'll see is that flashy, brilliant nature. Chitra literally means creativity. And it's that nakshatra of creativity. So you'll see a lot of that brilliant or brilliance coming from the brilliant creativity of somebody. And the shining nature is that glittering sort of outpouring of light as the sun was being cut down to size. So as I said before, this nakshatra sits equidistant between Virgo and Libra, and it shows both of the qualities that are important from both. Skill and precision of Virgo, becoming a higher aesthetic, and a form of connection with culture and people that happens in Chitra nakshatra. So the root word for this nakshatra, as I said, is creativity. So you'll see people with significant planets in Chitra and their ultimate creative nature. And you'll see that people that have Chitra nakshatra, oftentimes more in Libra than in Virgo, they love to wear glittery, shiny, flashy apparel. They like to, look bright and brilliant when they walk into a room, and they want everybody's attention to flow to them. So you'll see that in a Chitra mind. So whether creating solid structures to support your life and a universe of creating children to populate it, and the desire to make them, which happens in Libra, Chitra is passionate and exciting energy. And this is where the kingdom's not only functional, but it's very beautiful. Now, one thing about Chitra that's kind of interesting with it, Chitra is where Venus gets debilitated. And so that's on the more discriminating side of Virgo. And so when you look at debilitated Venus in Virgo, I think I said something about this maybe 2 weeks ago, but Virgo with Venus is where you're not happy no matter what. But it's conditional, because this is in Chitra is where it's still evolving. It's still culturing itself to be more of a divine manifestation of love, much more of a conditional type of love. And so what you'll see with people that have Venus in Chitra in Virgo is that when it comes to relationships, they hold a pretty, discriminative, pure view of the way the relationship should be. And so you can think of them as having like a little blackboard, and every single time somebody doesn't appreciate them or show the kind of love that's pure, they make a little chalk mark on that board and they keep track. So it's conditional. So as that Chitra flows into Libra, it has to become more social, more diplomatic, more able to balance out and compromise with other people. That's the social thing. And so what you can see are expressions of that still being shaped. If it sits in Virgo, it's pretty much all about practical nature and being hands-on on those kinds of things. If it flows between them into Libra, you'll see the expression of it coming out more as sort of getting comfortable in society and being able to start by this flashy nature, but they're culturing that. It's not an unbounded love, it's highly conditional in that situation. And being that Libra is an air sign that's movable, you can see the dramatic changes that can come in the emotions, in the expression of all of those things, because as an air sign, it deals with intelligent thinking and actions that are associated with that, but they're always changing. And it's a shallow kind of love. It's not a deep love. It's more of a social love. You want people to like you. You want to like them. And so those are the themes that you can see where this is being cultured like the pearl in an oyster over time. As they grow and become more learned about what Chitra means in their life, that evolves, and the culture of that becomes more like this beautiful pearl that you evolve into, which also pearl is recognized as one of the most practical gems, precious gems for jewelry. It's good for any occasion, which is what you want to balance life out and to compromise and not outshine everybody. So Chitra, ruled by Twastar, the cosmic craftsman, its power is the ability to accumulate merit in your life. Punya, Chani, Shakti. Its base above is the law. Its basis below is the truth. Through these, the worker is able to gain honor in his work. So the strengths and weaknesses here, or the strengths and shadow issues, the strengths are that you possess an abundance of beauty and charm, as well as a natural vibrancy and a unique, flashy style. So this brings you creativity, happiness, and prosperity. You have a naturally magical, mystical nature, which leads to spiritual awakening through sudden flashes of inspiration. You can see how that would happen. In between, when you're looking at that Virgo area where the juncture moves into Libra, all of that is where the Hasta energy expresses itself and then goes into all that detail orientation. It's highly spiritual. Deep spiritual awakenings can come through this particular area in the chart, especially through Chitra. I have Chitra in my chart, and when I discovered this whole thing, it helped me understand why I have had such experiences that have come to me in my life. So you also have a natural flair for color, presentation, which makes you an artist, or you're able to arrange all environments in a beautiful way. The shadow issues of it are that you may have an excessive sensual nature because of the earth sign of the Virgo portion of it. It's all about, the senses and smell and the sensual nature of all those things, just like you see in Capricorn and in Taurus, which are all earth signs. And so you must work to transform your worldly passions into service and love for things more than personal gratification. So you must also be careful not to delude yourself or exploit others as your spiritual awakenings occur. Less preaching, more practicing is a good mantra. So vanity is also possible here, as well as a smug, arrogant presence, because you got all those details and some of that disgust for behavior of people, and you bring that into a social environment, and you start to express all of that. And actually, Chitra is a Rakshasa energy, so it can deal with getting pretty sort of off your rocker, if you will, or troublemaker kind of thing. So, and one of the ways that people can do that is through their arrogance, their expressive, their eccentric nature of that. And Chitra sits right on the edge where the next nakshatra flows into, which is Swati. We'll talk about that after we cover this next area. So now we're looking at the 14th nakshatra, Chitra, which resides in between the signs of Virgo and Libra. And as I said, it means brilliant and distinguished. And it shows that practical creative dynamic of that Virgo-Libra juncture. And it shows you have all this courage, active and searching nature, which brings you face to face with many challenges. And as I talked about before, with the last sign, this is between the 6th sign and the 7th sign. So 6 deals with struggling and hard work, difficult things until we can learn how to serve those things, the things that we love rather than resent them. And we deal with health, disease, immune system, karma, yoga, pets, work and service, our efforts and our capacity to do hard work, and the ability to vanquish your enemies and overcome obstacles. That's all Virgo stuff, that inner intelligence we talked about, that responsible, dutiful nature that's critical, pure, and alone often, and how to improve that, to realize that our intolerance for some people because they're not perfect is something that we need to understand about ourselves, because we're not perfect either. So once you have that sort of understanding, the 7th sign is, well, okay, now we need to compromise those things and develop mutual respect. And this is also marriage. One of the things in marriage is a compromise. It's a contract. One person does one thing, one person does the other. And that's why I said before that this is happening in that front part of Libra, and we're just learning how to develop that mutual respect, because we're so much caught up in ourself at that point as we move into it. So we have to learn to negotiate and to compromise. And here we go into Libra. It's a sign of the social justice, the social scales, and how do we balance those kinds of things. And once we get them balanced, we get uncomfortable and we tip and we start unbalancing again. So this is always that kind of learning, how do we respect each other? How are the desires that we want to fulfill with another person get worked through, and the need to play fair and compromise. So general relationships with others and business associates, they all show up here, including our long-term relationships. And since it's opposite the ascendant, it shows to what we're most drawn and most challenged to learn. So when I say opposite, it's opposite Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac. And so we're always dealing with our identity, the identity of others, and all the imbalance and that teeter-totter world that we can experience in Libra. So Libra is all about, I want to be happy outside. And it's a shallow kind. It's not that deep kind of happiness, appreciation, and love, but it's about initiating and pursuing harmonious interactions with others and seeking mutual respect. And it's about realizing the love of beauty includes the love of truth. And that's what leads to transcendence. So it's very passionate. Libra is very passionate, but it's got a lot of intelligence, and it's a very exciting Rajasic energy. So it shows where the kingdom is not only functional, but it's also beautiful. And this shows the Rajasic nature of the sign of Libra, which is dealing with social interactions And with both the flashy outer trappings and that hesitant inner doubt regarding our manners, diplomacy, and the cultural maturity around our creative behaviors. So the ruling planet is Mars here, which shows that a lot of courage is involved, will, our discipline. You know, it's when we're trying to balance things out, we need discipline. And a lot of times we'll see in Libra people who even have Chitra, but usually Swati more so, they don't have any discipline. Like what they do is like they need to meditate, they need to do pranayama, but they'll never do it. They're the hardest people to get to do it. So those kinds of things of when you're disciplined, which is Mars, when you're, you know, when you uphold your dignity and your courage to be disciplined and, you know, to back up those things that are important in your life, your all those truthful identity issues about yourself, that you can bring strength to bear. That's what Mars is about, strength and awareness, and it's focus, it's discipline, but it's also black and white thinking, that energy. And you'll see that in these social situations with Chitra, there's a condition that can happen there, and person can go one way or the other. They can open up and tell you, I appreciate you, but not when you do that. That shows the diplomacy that is needed there, to have that courage to be disciplined, you know, to be strong and to be focused, logical. All of those kind of things are related to that. And then, you know, defense, aggression, brothers and friends also flow out of that because those are also Mars energy. So in this deity Twastar, he's also known as Vishwakarma, as I said before. Vishwa means permeating everything with action, all those actions of karma that permeate everything. And Venus is debilitated on that Virgo side of Chitra. So the practical, technical quality of this nakshatra doesn't allow for the highest qualities of Venus to unfold. So those qualities include unconditional love, which is still being cultured and developed. And we move on to the third flow of the spirit through the mind, which is Swati. Swati means the independent sword. And Swati shows that volatile, eccentric, and lustful nature of Libra. It shows the power to just scatter your energies and disperse them, and the need to gather your energy and concentrate it on something worthy. So Swati is one of those ones that manifests, you can really see it manifesting a lot in teenage periods of time where there's a lot of lustful sexual energy developing in someone's life, and they just want to scatter it all over the place. So you'll see a lot of, you know, issues associated with dating and, you know, being more open about sexual expression. And then as you begin to mature, you realize that just doing that, scattering all that, it creates a lot of volatility, a lot of volatility, and you'll see it in the teenage dating scene very, very clearly, because they'll go from one person to the next person to the next person, and everybody's always in a storm, you know, which is value energy. They're just like getting the word out and letting everybody know. And as we grow older, we begin to realize that Swati is where, if we don't, in Libra, if we don't focus our energy and do pranayama, do things to bring ourselves into the present moment, our awareness is just scattered all over the place. And you'll see this. So you'll see that dispersal and the need to, like, okay, now focus it into something worthy. So the other thing about Swati is it's ruled by Vayu, the wind god, and that wind, you know, what happens with wind? It scatters everything all over the place. And since it sits in an air sign, and it deals with thoughts and things. You can see the mind gets all churned up in that rajasic kind of energy of it, and it gets windy. So yeah, I can talk about one example. I was writing my book in 2018, and it was due in that evening at before 1 in the morning. It had to be on the server in the publisher's building, or else they weren't going to do anything with it. And so at that time, I've been working all day writing and fixing the last part of the manuscript. It didn't have to be perfect, it just needed to be there. And my mind, I was so tired from working on it all day. My mind was just all over the place. And at one point I was just kind of like, oh, forget it. I'm not going to submit it. I don't care. I'll just blow the whole thing. And then I, for some reason, started walking around my living room doing Bastrika, and it was like 12:30 at night. And all of a sudden my mind just boom, centered, totally came into a focus. This whole kind of Mars energy, because I also have Chitra, and Chitra flows into Swati. And in Swati, being the seventh sign of the zodiac, about all the compromises you have to make there. Now, it's Rahu energy, which is like obsession, exaggeration, blowing things out of proportion. It's also shows immaturity and all those kinds of things, and the skills that we need to really develop in our life related to Rahu, that eccentric kind of nature. And again, the symbols are the pearl, coral, and sapphire. Those are, all the gems that begin to develop when you bring yourself into a worthy battle. And so, literally, that independent sword you'll see with people that are Swati, they're talking about themselves most of the time. And when you get two Swati people together, they talk over the top of each other. I've seen this in many readings. That's how I know, like, they'll interrupt you as you're trying to tell them about themselves. They're talking over you instead of listening. And then there can be a period of time where two people are talking at each other, but neither one is listening. And one of the first readings I did was with a woman who was a Swati. She didn't hear any of the things in the recording because she talked over everything I said. And she wrote me afterwards and said, geez, I wish I would have kept my mouth shut, because I didn't get to hear any of the things that you said. And you can see that movable, sort of restless nature of that sign shows itself in Swati as the nature of the nakshatra. And the interesting thing about all of this is that, Vayu just roams everywhere. His home is in the Northwest, and he was involved in breaking off the top of Mount Meru and hurling it out into the sea, where it became eventually what's known as Sri Lanka today. And that was all related to things like back in the Ramayana. And so Vayu was also known as a lustful, indiscriminate god. And he was married. He's married to Vishwakarma's daughter, but he was very notable for basically having offspring by many female characters in the Hindu myths. You see a lot of this kind of indiscriminate behavior with certain gods throughout the zodiac. So one of the most famous illegitimate offspring, of course, is Hanuman, and he's known as the monkey god and the hero of the Ramayana. And Hanuman was also the general of the army of the monkeys. And he shows the power of the mind and prana when it's directed and focused. So, this is synonymous with the monkey mind. Monkey mind's all over the place. There's no discipline. It's just scattered, just like Vayu. So Hanuman shows that power of that mind and the prana when it's directed and it's focused, when he's like being the general. And the other thing is that the sun is debilitated here in Swati. So it shows how a scattered mind is detrimental to the focus and the vitality of the sun. And so this brings up a really interesting energy in Libra. So what you'll see, especially with Swati energy, and also when Chitra is in there, but you'll see it a lot with Swati, a lot of doubt and hesitancy. And that's because one of the things of Libra is hesitancy. And so what you'll see is, because the sun is debilitated, you don't feel so courageous. You don't know if you have the power to be able to do what it is that you do. But the ancient texts say that you're never given more than you can handle. And what happens with the sun in Libra is that's the time of the year when Diwali happens in India. And that's when you don't see the sun. It's darker earlier. And so, but the sun is still there. The sun is in its inner, it's in its inner state. And so one of the things about this particular nakshatra is you'll notice your doubt. And the symbol of doubt is, look at what do you doubt, and you know why. And when you look at that, if somebody comes to you and says, I love you, you'll say, do you really? And you know, you'll hesitate on it. I don't know if you're really telling me the truth. You will doubt that. And if somebody says, well, you're a schmuck and you're like everybody else, you'll just say, yeah, we'll get in line. Everybody else thinks so too. So you'll see how you don't accept the positive, but you hang on to the negative. And that happens here in Swati and in Libra. And so the understanding is you doubt because you don't know if you have enough courage. So whenever you doubt, you should do what it is that you doubt, because it shows that you have the capacity to do it. And so a debilitated sun is just where we're kind of hanging back and feeling not as powerful as we actually are. But the sun doesn't lose its power. It becomes more hesitant to shine because it's not shining out all over the place. So you'll notice this doubt is big. And when you do a reading with somebody and you get to Libra, and you'll see, even if both Swati and Chitra are there, especially in the Swati portion, you can say this and they'll start laughing. They'll all start talking about it. So the practice, the vitality of the breath as the prana and the mind are both important here in Swati. And when they're talking at each other, they're not just talking. Swati is good for public relations, marketing, sales, for getting the word out and spreading the word. And so what is the word that people are spreading when they're sitting talking in a social situation? Is they're telling their life story. So Swati can, and I'm guilty of it, can go on and on and on and on, and they can not know when to stop talking. It's just an element of it. They just get absorbed in what's going on there. That power inside of them starts telling the inner story of their life. So Swati in the Vedic order is ruled by Vayu, the deity that's known as the wind god. And he has that power to scatter like the wind, and it makes it good for, like I said, public relations, media, as well as sales and marketing. So Libra is my 10th house as an example. And all through my career, I had a degree in speech, communications, and marketing. And I worked in marketing for pretty much my whole career. I did public speaking for large groups. I was a debater, all those things. I was a sales manager and a VP of sales. I ran several companies that were all sales oriented. And so you can see that absolutely showing up in that situation. And you will see the speech of these people is very diplomatic. They want people to feel appreciated. They want people to like them, and they want to like those people. And so that takes diplomacy. And that's a very important thing, being it's my 10th house, which relates to those kind of things, politics and the outer world and all of that. You have to be very diplomatic. You can, especially these days. So that's important to understand. So you got to ensure that your thoughts and your energy are focused. You know, and things like slide presentations and all that, they help you focus those things. And so Hanuman, as the general of the army of monkeys, as I said, represents that symbol of the monkey mind and the need to gather and focus on your goals. All right, so Swati, the strengths of it is you have an innovative mind and approach to problem solving. It's unique. So you're eager to help and defend the righteous cause. You're not afraid to take a risk or destroy something in order to create something better in its place. You're a good business person and generally fair-minded in your dealings. Your ideas and actions have lasting impact, scattering far and wide, brings you fame and recognition. On the shadow issues, you may exhibit an impulsive nature to be too quick to change course. And you'll see that because of that movable sign, that dramatic thing, ability to change. Self-centeredness could be present in your energies if they're not aligned with the worthy goal. And this inner restlessness must be harnessed and directed properly, or else your powerful actions will lack understanding and they'll lead to personal fatigue and destruction for all. So, and then the last one I already said, you say too much, which can also result in talking over others in conversations while telling your life story. And doubt arises here quite often, and you may feel that you don't have the courage to do what it is that you need to do. So, as an example for me, I do a lot of my astrology readings through my 10th house. They're activated through my 8th house and paid for through my 8th house, but I deliver them in the 10th house. And I bring out a lot of these things to people. The number one thing that's common in all situations is their doubt. And these people will be, and because it's Rajasic, they can get too wrapped up in their inability to do what it is that they can actually do. And so that's why Swati is the independent sword. You have to cut through all of that eccentric nature with that sword, and you're doing it at your level of independence. Even though it's in a social situation, it's important. You hack through those things and get precise. You cut out the stuff that isn't of value. So when we look at this one as the 15th nakshatra, the zodiac, it sits in the center of Libra. And as I said, it means independent sword. And what's really interesting here is that it shows that you feel a connection to power, both worldly and otherworldly. And as I was talking before about the energies and that sort of eccentric energy that comes in there, it's a deeply, it can be a deeply mystical understanding as well that can come from Swati. And that's because the Rahu makes you innovative and unusual in your approach, that Rahu energy. And the symbol is that you're culturing things here, you know, like coral has to grow in culture. Sapphire is a gem. It takes years and years of the hardening of that gem, the pressure on it. And of course, the pearl inside the oyster being cultured in its growth. So here we're talking straight 7th sign of Libra, which deals with the outer happiness and initiating and pursuing harmonious interactions and seeking mutual respect. So here we're looking at, we're really trying to realize the love of beauty includes the love of truth, and that in itself brings a transcendence to our life. Now, in the 7th sign, all the things we talked about before, general relationships, playing fairly, all of those. But Libra is about social interaction and justice. So this is, to realize the love of beauty includes the love of truth, but this leads to the transcendence. It also leads to the doubts, hesitancy of other people, shallow, social love of beauty. You'll see a lot of Swati people they're sort of like group cheerleaders and social. They're the queen that does all the social events and all the planning and all of those things. You'll see a lot of that, scattering their energy, running around in the group and saying hi to everyone, sort of flirting with them, but not really at the same time. And so this Rahu energy underlies this particular nakshatra because it's the ruling planet. So you can see a lot of obsessions and attachment, a lot of exaggeration, also confusion. Sorry. Also a lot of confusion, immaturity, a need to like grow in that area of life. You can also see, depending on where the sign is, if it's somebody's first house, it can show narcissism or a lot of focus on yourself and an inconsistency to how you do that. See, like the exaggeration and stuff can make you blow things out of proportion. And so there'll be distortions. Also, Rahu doesn't listen. So you might notice, especially if it's in the first house, that you're so quick to move forward on the things that you want to do. And that's a pretty movable, restless sign that listening is not one of the top priorities of it. And it's easy to sort of cover everything in a smoke screen, of confusion. But there is an expanded perception here, and that's what's related to that worldly and otherworldly kind of thing. But Rahu always sees everything as wide open for invasion. And that expanded perception is related to that. It wants to dive into the world and invade the world of what is illusion, but not seeing it as illusion, seeing it as real. Rahu is also can deal with a lot of screaming and yelling too, because there's a lot of fear and anxiety that can be mixed up. And Rahu being the head of the serpent, the fangs can relate to toxicity and putting out smoke and surprises. And like I said, the need to develop skills. And it represents the desires of your evolving soul. So Vayu is the wind god, and the breath of life is prana, the spiritual father of Hanuman. Vayu is described as having exceptional beauty and moving noisily in his shining coach, driven by 2 or 49 of 1,000 white and purple horses. I have no idea what that means, other than that flashy, artistic, sort of expressive nature. So like the other atmospheric deities, he's a fighter and a destroyer, powerful and heroic. All right, so that takes us through the session of the slides. We still have some time. We're actually right on schedule. But what I'd like to do is throw up a few charts and have some of you talk about your nakshatras and how you feel those. Let's see, I think I have them already loaded here. If you don't want to talk about your chart, that's okay. You don't have to feel obligated, but it's a great learning experience if you can sort of articulate some of the things we talked about in light of what's really present with that nakshatra in your life. I got something going on in the background that's slowing this down. Let's get it out of the way and bring this up. All right. So I have Kathy Casey, Vicki Lim, Melanie Moyer, Arvis, Amanda. You all have either Chitra or Swati. And like Melanie has Hasta and Chitra. Would some of you like to open up your mic and let's
I'm fine with it.
talk about some of your charts? I don't want to put it up there unless you're willing to do it.
You can put mine up.
No, I can't hear you. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Where is it? Audio.
I have mine unblocked.
There we go. It was my microphone was blocking it. So
Can
who
you
do we
hear me
have
now?
first? Yeah. Who do we have first?
Melanie?
Okay, Melanie. All right. So Melanie has Moon in Hasta in her 11th house, and she has Sun in Chitra, debilitated Sun, and Mercury in Vishaka. We won't talk about the Mercury because we're just dealing with Hasta and Chitra right now. So explain how you feel that Moon in Hasta, which is your 9th house ruler, in the 11th. So it's like your highest dharma, your highest beliefs and dharma shaping life events in large groups of people.
Well, I'm not sure, but I know that when I first took a yoga class, I knew that I could feel right away that there was so much more than the asana, and that got me started to want to learn everything I could about the philosophy of yoga, and it brought me to the Yoga Sutras, which you mentioned in the Hasta part, and I studied that pretty extensively, and this brought me to want to learn more, of course, which brought me to want to learn a little bit of Sanskrit, which I have. I'm still working on that. And
You're a great teacher of it, so you'll do well.
thank you. And then Jyotisha, it led me to Jyotisha, which I'm just beginning. But
Yeah.
I really just fell into it and didn't look back. And I don't know if that has to do with my moon in Hasta.
Well, actually, what you said was really beautiful because you were pursuing higher teachings. That's
Yeah.
the Moon, 9th house ruler. And then what you did is you made it into your ambitions and your goals and things to like learn more about it, which is 11th house. And you may have enrolled in a Sanskrit class that was more than one person. You know, it
Yes.
could have a whole new community of people that you got exposed to through taking Sanskrit and now Jyotisha. So it's exactly what you said as an example of that.
Oh, okay. And I mean, it's actually the Hasta moon. It's my moon in Hasta moon. I wasn't sure what that meant.
Well, because Hasta is ruled by Moon, so like right now we have significant planets all in Moon Nakshatras right now. So this whole year is about the Moon, and so we're going to have a planetary collection in Taurus here in Rohini fairly soon, and we have Saturn and Jupiter and Mercury, I believe, right now are all in a Moon Nakshatra, so in Capricorn. So one of the things, learning to do the Gayatri mantra and understanding Gayatri and how to do it properly, which, you know, a lot of yoga people don't teach correctly, by the way. There's a process called Upanayanam in India where you're initiated into Gayatri, and there's a whole knowledge associated with it. But it's a good time to chant Gayatri mantra at least 10 times every single day. It's sort of the remedy that you could ask for this year.
That's interesting, because I've been drawn to the Gayatri mantra also.
Yes, yes. And so one of the things that they say when you say your moon in Hasta moon, because Hasta is the moon.
Right.
And so you can see, you notice the emotional feeling that you have around that Hasta energy. Look at how much emotion you have, love, devotion, all of that towards the Yoga Sutras.
Yes.
Yeah. Now you're not going to be able to learn that properly from a yoga teacher. You won't learn it from your Sanskrit teacher either.
And where does it come from? Where
You
should I?
need you need to find a master, somebody, a guru who has tremendous understanding of prana and the whole value of the Vedic knowledge. Because there's so many books written about the Yoga Sutras. I've been practicing them for almost 40 years. And I can tell you, none of those books describe what goes on in what I do. It's all theoretical, because it's Virgo energy. So people want to approach it. You can get books from, PhD professors and all of that stuff, but in university, they're taught not to do the practices that they teach about because that compromises them.
Oh, wow.
So they'll explain it, and some of the most recent books on, I mean, you see how thick they are. They're like Bibles.
Yes.
But I can tell you, they don't have any understanding of the spiritual flow of the prana. It's all intellectual. And that's not what the Yoga Sutras are about. You have
Okay.
to be totally non-intellectual around it.
I understand that. Yes.
That's why Mercury gets exalted there, because you already have the skill to understand it. You don't have to intellectualize on it. That's beautiful.
It does feel like reading the different versions I have. It felt like not like a learning, but more like a remembrance.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing that's really interesting in the Yoga Sutras is the first, and you already know this, the first word has the totality of the knowledge in it.
Yes, I love it.
Up top.
Yeah.
Up top, no gravity. That's beautiful. So what about the sun in Chitra in your 12th house?
Well, I do feel a lot of hesitancy. So that debilitated, I'm assuming that that's why, because it's debilitated.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I'm not really sure what else it could mean.
No, that's exactly it. It just means, like, a lot of people want to very quickly slap a label on a debilitated planet and they'll just go, oh, that's bad. It doesn't mean anything other than opposite it in the sign of Aries is where Sun is exalted. So across the chart, in which is your 12th house here, that Sun being debilitated means it's not expressing. Exalted is where it's radiating it out. You'll see people that have exalted suns. First of all, most of the hair on the top of their head's gone. It literally burns it off. And my guru, Sri Ravi Shankar, which, by the way, he's a great person to learn Sanyam from. His program is by far the most profound I've ever done. And it's life-changing, totally life-changing. But you can see the whole top of his head is all the hair is gone from it. And, I'm sure he's a little self-conscious about it because he's always loved his long hair. And so for it to be more inner, more inside, like what you notice is the hesitancy because it's not shining outside. It's the power within you. It's the inner light. And for Chitra, it shows you're still cultivating that kind of energy to understand it. And it's related to your 10th house of how you impact the world. You know, we say 10th house is career, but 10th house is really highest purpose. Your job usually ends up being the career. Career is the purpose. People think their career is their job. It's not. So you can do a lot of things. So it shows in your chart that you're building skills to impact the world. There's skills of love, and there's skills of they're eccentric, and there's something that mean a lot to you. Now that's your 10th house ruler in the 12th. So you have the ruler of your career in the house of loss.
Ah,
That house of loss and liberation. So do you have a career right now?
at this point right now, no.
Yeah, there you go.
This is it. Yes, I'm just what I'm focusing on is studying my studies, and I would like to be able to one day share what I've learned.
Yeah. Now, the other thing about the 12th house is 12th house is where we have a lot of confusion, but it's where we really have a hidden side of us that's related to our subconscious and unconscious patterns. And so one of the things we do in the 12th house is, of course, eventually you let go. It's a house of death, but you can get liberated from those things. You know, the liberation can come from somebody, maybe even a friend, introducing you to something that takes you away from what it was you were doing, as an example of it. And that friend, according to your chart, would be of very high standards. But the sun energy there in, being your 10th house ruler, showing the power to want to reconnect to the cosmic self. Because like in the 12th house, you can escape into the world or you can escape into the self. So one of the things you might notice is that you might like to sleep more, as an example. You may have trouble getting out of bed. You may like to just take extra time, or you may spend a lot of time in meditation, or you want to.
Okay, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
And 12th house is where you can do that by going to a foreign country, like on a pilgrimage to an ashram or something like that.
Okay.
And that will transform you because you have your 8th house ruler in the 12th. It forms a Viparit Raja Yoga. And so that just means that you, when you have the 8th house ruler in the 12th, it shows that you sort of have to pay attention to reality, to your imagined fears, to not just be an escapist about those things.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah. So you can see when you're doing readings and you bring out these attributes for people of the nakshatras, it makes it so much deeper to them. And you could actually do a whole reading of somebody through nakshatras and never touch their planets. It's incredibly effective for people. Well, thank you for being the first guinea pig, Melanie. Nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we have other people that would like to participate?
I have a quick question about this, actually, if I may.
Yeah.
The sun being really debilitated at 10 degrees would be in Swati nakshatra, right? And since Mars and the sun are actually friends, I would say that Chitra is actually better for the sun. Am I right about that?
It's a different kind of relationship of it, but you are right. They are friends, and you probably would see a much greater expression of that friendliness, that interaction with them. So that is one of the things that Chitra can do, because it brings out more of the brilliance.
Right, and the
Yeah.
sun is brilliant.
Yeah, the sun is always brilliant, even though it's inside, you know.
Right.
So if we look at the intelligent expression of the sun, you know, for you, when you look at on the screen where the dignity of it is, shows the debilitated nature of it, but it shows that the sun is asleep. So it means it's only using half of its energy. And it's very youthful in this situation by the Avasta for it. It shows the kind of partner that you would have in your life. And it has a neutral function, which means it's not producing, you know, a malefic difficulty or, you know, pure benefic nature, but it's more serene or you know, scarcely there, as an example of it.
So her partner would probably be pretty spiritual, and like the whenever he walks into the room, like she sees the brightness of him because of the sun being dark Harka.
Yeah, you could look at it that way. That's right. The Dharaka partner shows that she would look for somebody who's not trying to outshine her, for example. She wouldn't want that. That would be draining to her, is to have a partner who is just, you know, all about that. And here in Vishaka, it shows that she would be going through some kind of transformation, which is relative to that partner, as an example of it. So, you know, eighth house is usually, like, some people will say it's the husband's money, but it's, if you're in a marriage, you can say that, but it's really other people's values that you don't have control over, because you don't, it's a black hole. So in this case, Mercury is all about that transformation that she goes through when she gets into a collective. She gets into a larger group and aligns with her ambitions and goals. Um, there's a huge transformation that goes into the 12th house, as an example of that. And so that can be the deep connection. That can be the thing that makes her connect deeper to her soul.
Yeah,
You know,
because you've got Atmakarka and Darakarka both in the 12th house of spirituality, so their connection is probably based on like spiritual values and things like that.
yeah, and I would say, you know, given Hasta and Chitra, that I don't know Melanie well enough to know, but she would, if she's looking for somebody in that sense to share, you know, to share the world with her, because it's a 10th house kind of thing. She's looking for people to have around her who are spiritual and mystical, you know.
That's correct. I'll just chime in. That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Melanie. So who is talking just now?
This was Susan. I'm sorry. I love looking at charts and I go really into it. So I'm sorry, but I had that question. Thank you.
See. Yeah, I don't think you had any nakshatras in your chart for
No, not for this.
not for this one, but we got some good ones coming up that we'll be able to share with you in the upcoming ones. Now I also have Amanda. Would you like to have your chart shared?
Sure, I'm fine with that.
I like people that don't mind getting it out there. Some people are a little shy. All right, so I'm gonna drop Melanie out of here so we have a clear focus. Thank you, Melanie, for your help there.
You're welcome.
All right, so we have some interesting stuff here with Amanda. So Amanda has as a Pisces ascendant. She has Saturn in her 12th in Chitra, which, you know, how, do you have a partner, Amanda?
No, I'm single.
Ah, okay. So having Saturn in the 7th house shows that there's definitely an opportunity for a partner who's willing to make a commitment, but can also show that you're standalone.
I can be. So I was listening to how Virgo can be critical, and I do find that when it comes to partner selection, I am rather I'm very picky about certain things. I don't know. I'm picky, but I'm picky about personality, and
Yeah.
that's one of my problems.
Yeah. So, you know, when you look at your ambitions, Saturn is the ruler of your ambitions and also the things that drain your energy or make you look towards the cosmic self, because it's your 12th house ruler as well as your 11th house ruler. And you have your K2 sitting in your 11th house, which actually shows a lot of. Did you have a lot of freedom when you were a child to run around in your community?
I did.
Yeah, that's the K2 energy. And if you notice, we'll talk about Uttarashada another time, but it is in Uttarashada, which is a very interesting nakshatra for that. I won't spoil it right now, but that K2 shows that skill you have and that perfectionism that you have around large groups of people. So if you're trying to like look in the community and pick somebody, you're going to be scrutinizing the heck out of them, and that's coming from your K2 energy, which Saturn rules. And
Wow, I
Saturn,
would have never thought that. Okay.
yeah, so Saturn is bringing the energy from the 11th and the 12th there into the 7th. So it's like you probably would want a very spiritual partner as well, because that the 12th
Yes,
house,
I do.
yeah, yeah. And Chitra means there's a lot of conditions on this. You know, and when you see that brilliance and that sort of that shine that comes off of that, because you're seeing it as being isolated from it right now, which, you know, it's true, it can be the case, but it's probably the case because of the transits that are going on right now. So we have
I've been
Saturn.
very big into self-development too right now. So for several years, I've been big into more like trying to improve myself on a spiritual level and in almost every aspect of life.
Yeah. See, that's a beautiful way to put it. See that you can see the Chitra, you're looking for the real brilliance. You're looking for the mastery and sort of the artistry to build something beautiful, you know, and there's a lot of conditions on it. And you know, if we're just looking at your chart, you may not think you're a perfectionist when it comes to dealing with your ambitions or when you're dealing with those things that are, you know, more social, dealing with a social group of people. But you know, that's just the fact that when you look for perfection there, all you notice is imperfection.
I am actually a perfectionist at work too. So I think that's just something that's naturally in me. And I expect a lot out of myself and I expect a lot out of others. And I think that's when I get disappointed. That's how I've interpreted a lot of this.
You're exactly right. You know, Chitra shows the conditions, Saturn shows the pressure that you want to put on people, and exactly what you said. But you know, you're in a Sun Mahadasha right now, which is why, you know, the difficulty, the hard work, you know, the seriousness of the hard work. It's one of your values. Mars is the ruler of your values, and it's the ruler of your highest teachings. It's in the 6th house, ruled by the sun, which is about service. You know, the things that you love the most are the things that you're willing to work the hardest for. And you quit struggling over them. There might still be some struggle there right now because it's just things are evolving in your life. And you're, how old are you now?
I'm 39.
Okay. So at 39, you're hitting the middle age coming here. At
I
40.
feel it very much.
Yeah, so what happens in middle age is a real sort of mellowing that takes place. And after you cross the 45 zone, then everything, the nodes all switch and they start to become less aggravating or, challenging and more spiritual. They start to focus that way. So you might start seeing all of that because of your propensity for spirituality. Also, your 11th house ruler, Capricorn, is the sign where spirit takes form in a practical, concrete way. And in Capricorn, it's a movable structure. So it shows the restlessness. It's an earth sign. And it shows that sort of restlessness in the group, in the collective, dealing with everybody's, competition, if you will, from that situation. So Saturn is definitely a very spiritual planet. It's the planet of wisdom. It's a planet of, pain and difficulty, but Saturn's experienced everything. And Saturn is always the thing that remembers its mistakes and it tells everybody else, don't you do that, which, you might be using that as a way to express that through pressure to people in the others that gather around you at work and the people that you're looking for and all of that. But that's just how you're feeling it, because this is the movie of Amanda. So these are the karmas that you came to learn about, and the transits are what are affecting you on a day-to-day basis. And you're interpreting them and feeling them in that way. So right now you have Saturn in your 11th, which should bring about a lot of focus on your highest ambitions. And in the energy of Uttara Ashada, right there at that section of Uttara Ashada, between there and Shravana, which comes after it, is where Ritam Parapragya is, which is called the blueprint of the universe. And that's where Shruti, Smriti, and Purana play out. So Purana is the frozen potential of consciousness to do anything. And then it starts to get enlivened and it expresses itself as Shruti, that which is heard. You start to hear mantras and sounds, and you start to feel this vibration. Rita means rhythm. Vada means full of, and pragya means a mind full of rhythm. And so this is like one of the secret magic things that happen in Capricorn. And if you look at a lot of spiritual leaders, you'll see Capricorn plays a pretty significant role in their life because it's a large sign. So you notice your ambitions are large. You don't want to do anything small. And the kinds of things you like to really do that deal with service and not struggle is big as well. You want to serve on a large way because Leo's a large sign, and your values are large because Aries is a large sign.
Yes, I do feel that way. Actually, I feel like I'm in a transition in life, actually, with careers. That's how I feel right now. But then I just kind of say, oh, well, maybe I'm having one of those midlife crises.
Yeah, well, especially today because the moon is sitting. If you look at the transits down here, the moon is sitting in Sagittarius with your Venus. I'm not sure if it's in Mula today or not. Let me take a look real quickly. Moon is in Mula. Yeah. Okay. So you're uprooting.
Wow.
You're like looking at uprooting things, and emotionally you're thinking, it's time to get rid of those old worn out ideas and beliefs and, and emotionally connect to something that is actually real and true and not just a bunch of beliefs.
That's amazing. Yes, that's exactly how I feel.
It's just, the thing is one of the lessons that's so beautiful about the Nakshatras is they show the divine energies of you, And Mula is all about a very divine energy, which we'll talk about in the next week's class. So I'm not going to spoil it here, but you'll see this nature to like begin things fresh, begin new, get rid of the old, out with the old. So there's a theme all through the chart. You look at Ardra, it's about a destruction, and things that are in the way that are no longer serving us need to get destroyed to make room for new things. And so you'll see these showing up every couple of signs away from each other. There'll be something tearing something up. And next week, I'll talk a little bit about Vishaka and how that shows up. And then we'll look at Vishaka. Actually, we won't make it all the way to Mula next week. We'll do Vishaka. We'll do Anuradha and Jeshta, which are that's all Scorpio stuff, except for the last few degrees in Libra where Vishaka shows up in your chart. I won't talk about it right now, but because I don't want to spoil what's
Well,
coming.
we can talk about Swati because I definitely resonated what you said. I have Mercury in Swati, and I have often found that when I'm having a conversation with someone, I do have a tendency to overtalk with them, and I've learned that I have to be mindful of that on my own, and I have to be quiet and let the other person finish what they're trying to say.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And just be if it's just you, it's a little easier to deal with than if it's two Swatis talking.
Well, I've
Because
noticed my mom has the same problem. So when we talk, we're constantly like over talking each other. And then I have to back off and let her do it and then, go from there. It's really interesting though.
yeah, well, your fourth house ruler, which is also related to mother, is in the eighth house. So there's a lot of things that you might not see about her values, for example. She could be like a bit of a black hole to you, but she could also be a major change agent in your life.
Yes, I'm very close with my mother.
Yeah. And you can see that, the dignity is great friend, which shows, that sort of serenity and rejoicing that you have when you're around her. And it's like a dream.
Yes.
It's like a dream that you're in. And
Yeah, she's like my best friend. So,
well, and it shows Nyati Karaka, which it's one of the most difficult things for you is when you try to apply that maybe in other spheres with other people, because Nyati Karaka means that's how you go about doing things in your life. You can be very friendly and expressive in that way. It may not always turn out the best for you, depending, because eighth house, you can't control it. It's where you're out of control.
yep, yep.
But yeah, then you have your 10th and your first house ruler in the eighth, which is what you said about the careers, the issues of the careers, because
Yes.
10th is the career, and you got your Venus there, and Jupiter rules your identity and also your impact on the world, and it's you may be confused about that. Have you had something sudden and shocking happen to you recently?
With my health, yes.
Uh, and did you do some research to find out why that happened?
Yes, I did.
What did
And
you discover a mystery?
say it again.
Did you discover a mystery of life?
I did. I was diagnosed with a rare condition that I had never heard before, and I've been a nurse for about 15 years. So I had to research that and I had to understand it and I had to learn about how do I treat it and I've had to change my lifestyle, in order to manage it. So it was really interesting.
Does it involve inflation or inflammation in the body?
It does.
Yeah,
It
because
does.
yeah, Vishaka is Jupiter energy, which would show inflammation, and Sun is your sixth house ruler in the eighth.
Yeah,
So
and I'm in Sun Mahadasha too.
yeah, but that's also a Viparit Raja Yoga, where suddenly, shockingly,
Yes.
it'll just disappear.
Yes, I am aware of that Vipri Raj Yoga, and I also have a Parivartana yoga between the eighth house and the 10th house.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yep. So that, when you look at those planetary exchanges like that, it shows a strength that those two bring to each other, but it also shows the challenges. And the challenge is trying to project, the Jupiter projection, to make a projection around like social engagements and things like that, and aligned with being respected for your beliefs. So that's the biggest challenge, I think, that you would get from it. But they bring a great strength. It brings a lot of knowledge to you to understand those things and to look into them.
Yes, I find that I have quite a thirst for knowledge. I love learning about different things. I feel like that's something that I will do probably up until the day that I die.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. And also, a lot of times when I see Venus in the 10th house, they're usually a nurse.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
very interesting.
yeah. And yours is like very friendly. It's got a lot of the qualities that you would want as a nurse, for example. And if you look at the type of nursing that you do, is related to that nakshatra.
I work with surgery.
Yeah. Yep. So it's interesting seeing that kind of stuff. Surgery, Mula is about things like that. It's
And
like,
the eighth house exchange between the eighth and the 10th, I would think would have something to do with that too. Wouldn't the eighth house be like surgery?
yes, yes. So it can be, it's actually more about psychology, maybe people's fears, imagined fears around surgery, as an example. Like eighth house is the thing you can't control, and it's their value. And it's always about imagined fears. Now, imagined fears is what you think might happen in the future, and fear is false evidence appearing real, which means it never happens. You just think it'll happen. And notice when you're dealing with patients, how they have that fear of death. They're
Well,
afraid something's going to go wrong.
well, that's interesting that you say that because I work with patients that need to have open heart surgery. And I always have to, be very honest with them and before they're, going in for the surgery. And I always have to, try and give them some type of comfort, emotionally
Yeah,
before they're going in for surgery.
yeah. Now, we'll talk about that in one of the upcoming classes. That's a great thing what you just said, because it absolutely describes Mula. And we'll have some fun with that. Make sure you remind me, because that'll be a couple weeks from now.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been
Yeah,
interesting.
thank you for sharing. You have some beautiful, expressions of the nakshatras here. It's very great.
Thank you.
Now, somebody else like to come forward? Let's see, who else? We got Vicky, we have Arvis. If they're still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Would you like to
Vicky, yeah,
see a chart, Vicky?
sure.
Okay. You had some good examples of it too, from what I remember. Let me just close out Amanda here. All right. Yeah, you have Chitra and Swati.
Yes, both in
So,
the 5th house. Yes.
yeah, so that's showing up in your 5th house. So how are you experiencing that around creativity, children, romance, intelligence, all that stuff?
In this lifetime, it's been very challenging to hold real strong boundaries because I have a very strong son. So as he was growing up, it was a real challenge.
Yeah.
My daughter, not so much, but my son, who's the older, yes.
So what did he do? He's the Mars energy, right?
Yeah, he's definitely Mars energy. Yeah, he's a Scorpio ascendant.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
He was always pushing my buttons, and he was always pushing boundaries. And it started from the time he was little, and it would scare me. I mean, okay, as an infant, I had a convertible and I had the car seat in the middle of the back seat and driving along, and he had figured out a way to escape out of the car seat and crawl back over and into the boot area. It's like, how in the world is
Yeah.
he restrained? Yeah. I mean, he would get so angry when he was in his crib, I had to put a net over it because he could actually throw himself out of the crib if he didn't get his way.
Especially with Chitra energy. He's
Yeah.
a Mars, wall of fire of Mars.
Yes.
A struggling ambition.
Yes.
Always looking to like establish his presence.
Yes. And thank heavens he's a lot calmer now at 45.
Yeah, that's the beauty of these things is the evolution. Like when I do readings with people and I'm looking at Mars areas where they're having some challenges, like the miserable feeling that you had with that Mars energy as an enemy. But it also showed related to a more infant stage, like dealing with the infant stage as an example. And Mutrakaraka means the mother, so it would be the thing that you were experiencing with it, but it can also be your mother.
Oh yeah, she was a problem too. She wanted to take over the mothering of my children.
So it shows that moon is your Darakaraka. So are you married now?
No,
Have you been?
twice.
Oh, and it, pretty emotional, huh?
Yeah, both of them have been very emotional. All of it past life stuff. So
Yeah, so the one thing also is that Saturn in the 3rd with the sun doesn't help matters any. Like Saturn is the son of the sun, and he's the king in the house of the king.
right.
Saturn is Maga, and sun is, father in love with the son kind of thing. And by that I mean SON.
Yeah, I figured that.
And so Parashara always describes Saturn and Sun as equal, but they don't do well when they're in each other's houses.
No, they don't.
Yeah, Saturn is the one energy that can put pressure on the Sun, and that can bring all kinds of challenges and things like that.
Right. And of course, and then he marries someone who's even more of a challenge. So And she has a lot of Chitra and Swati.
Ah, a lot of flash
Yeah, a lot of flash,
and a lot to say.
a great deal.
So let's talk a little bit about your K2 there with Swati.
Basically, it's been very interesting. I always saw that as something that had to do because of past lives. I get flashbacks of experiences, and I don't know how this ties to the two of them because I haven't really thought that one through. But in a prior lifetime, my son killed me because I wouldn't give him what he wanted.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're
So there
right.
was a lot of
K2 shows.
fear tied to having this child,
Oh, yeah.
especially when he got to around, I would guess, the age that happened.
Yeah. You're right.
But is
K2
that
brings
Mars or is that the Ketu? Huh?
K2 shows all the things that you brought with you from the past life.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But it also shows where you're feeling, you know, like you're shedding your skin. And like K2 is the body without a head. And so it's the serpent energy. And when Rahu gets its head cut off, then, you know, it's like a snake biting its skin off, breaking the skin around the head and then wriggling out of the skin, as an example of that as well. But it shows that wanting to withdraw from that area. What was your experience like growing up as a child too? Was it similar to what
It
you're
wasn't
saying?
pleasant.
Yeah.
It wasn't pleasant. So yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, and I have no idea if this has anything to do with that, but I was in a mudra class, and one of the mudra, what we did is we would do the mudra and then discuss how it affected each of us. And in one particular mudra, it was disconcerting because I had always had a fear of snakes, especially cobras, and there aren't a lot of them in Arizona. And with this mudra, I felt the snake come up over my head, but instead of being fearful, it was extremely calming and felt like it was a protection.
Yeah. So see the Swati gathering the energy, which is what you do when you're doing pranayama. It's fifth house, which is where you're being taught something.
Yeah.
You're learning something new. Yeah, and that the K2 could definitely bring that experience of feeling like the cobra is right over your head. Now Swati is the Rahu energy. So you have, when you talked about the spiritual things that were happening, you have Rahu K2 right there active in that spot because of the Swati energy. Swati's Rahu.
Right.
So you have both nodes, basically the serpent present, and what you described is an exact example of what's there.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking, and nobody could explain to me anything about it, which was even weirder. But it was delightful, and I kept being able to pull it back up whenever I wanted it.
Yeah, and there's the Chitra energy at present because you were like architecting the experience,
Mm-hmm.
and you know the brilliance of it and all of the sort of the passion associated with it as well. You can see the Rajasic energy in there.
Right.
That's
I'm beginning to think that it may even be tied to, because when I was training in massage in China, they had a Qigong master,
Ah,
and it was he took us through a series of exercises, and when we were done with it, and in talking to the other students, I was the only one that experienced this. I could feel that nothing was solid, and we were on the 6th floor. And it was a little bit disconcerting when you could tell that the floor wasn't solid. I could feel all the vibrations of all the molecules moving. But more recently, I've been able to bring that back up again.
Well, see, your Mercury is in your 4th, which relates to the peace in your heart and, you know, your property, your home, you know, all of your inner experience that you're talking about. And Mercury, the ruler of it, is exalted there in Uttara Palguni, which, you know, is associated with all the details, like you were saying, all the details of everything. And so being able to literally feel it, because 4th house is your inner feeling capacity, your feeling nature. And it really describes everything you said, right down to the detailed discrimination of what you experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's always just so amazing to listen to people's stories and have you unwind what goes on there. It's just an amazing situation. You're going to love Jeshta next week.
Good.
So,
Well, thank you.
yes, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to get into talking about these charts. And so we're running over time now, and I didn't hear anything from Artis, so he's on a different time zone, so I'm sure he'll probably catch it on the recording. So maybe what we'll do is we'll bring it to a close, and we'll close off with a chant here. So let's close our eyes and bring our attention into the moment. And take a breath in and slowly let it out. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all beings be happy. May you have a wonderful remainder of your weekend. Thank you so much for attending today. This was one of the most enjoyable sessions. And I'm sorry that I was a little delayed last week getting the recording out to you. It was a big week of a lot of changes. So as soon as this one processes today, I'll make sure everybody gets all the links today. You should already have the slides and the documents. It would be valuable to read some of the notes and reflect back over your nakshatras that we talked about today, because this section that I wrote about goes really deep into each of these areas. And I think you'll find a sort of a vision. All of us should feel, once we understand the core principles, that you can interpret the nakshatra based on your understanding of those things. But you'll also notice as you're expressing it that there'll be some other things that will come up around it. Don't think like there's only one right way to see things, because the basic core of the nakshatra begins to tell the story And what I've done with it over the last 4 years is bring the story to the techniques that are associated with it and ground it into the Vedic knowledge behind it. And I haven't seen many people do that. And I've been extremely hesitant about doing it. But people tell me that it's really produced good results. So I want you all not to doubt the way you see them, which is the Libra part of it, and really, dive into that field of possibility, because that's got all kinds of intelligent ideas and things that will come out in those areas, the Mercury and then the air sign and all of that. And so don't feel like it's coming from a Bible, because if you go read the Vedic text, you won't get as much clarity as what we've been sharing here. It's just so deep, and it can get to be really confusing. So ground in the principles, and then notice when you write about it for yourself, notice what comes out of that thing. And what you'll see is you'll start to have the nakshatras speaking to you. And when we started the class, I talked about the 7 states of consciousness in which we're the observer here. And if you're doing meditation practices, you're turning the state of observation into a process in your life where you're in the moment witnessing what's happening as the sakshat. You are the observer. And so keeping that in mind all the time as you approach these things, rather than trying to understand them totally intellectually, let the expression of the feeling of it convey itself through the nakshatra, because you're just observing it as it expresses itself. And what you'll see starting to happen is you'll see something is making that expression go the way it is, and it's always the deity. The deity is the thing that's basically showing you what you should be observing, what that lesson is. And your nakshatras are related to the spiritual nature of those lessons from the last life. And as you observe it, your awareness goes outward and expands more and more and more. And the realm of the deities is very expansive. And that's why these are the Shakti, that is the pranic energy that connects your life from one place to the next. See if you can connect that story in your life. And Vicky's got a nice, great L in her chart where they're all in that first section of the chart. They cover the first Purushartha and almost the second Purushartha. So those are all of the ways in which we go through the world and the goals that we have. And blend it all together. It will become the story. The signs are the story. The number of the sign is the story. The nakshatra is the story. The deity and the planets. You can spend an hour on one nakshatra. That's how deep they get. And so I encourage you to step forward, because as that awareness expands, more of that cosmic nature of you comes forward. You start to live from the level of the deeper myths that are inside of the Vedic understanding. I don't really look at them as myths because they're active, going on all the time. They are the spiritual reality behind everything. So with that said, I'll say goodbye for this week. Have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week.
Thank you, Jeff. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.